In this video, I want to show you how to install luxury vinyl plank. While I'm installing Trafficmaster Allure, which is a grip strip type of vinyl plank, the techniques and principles will apply to most luxury vinyl plank systems. First step, remove any carpet if you have any. If there is pre-existing laminate or other vinyl, you could leave it if it's in good condition. Next up, if there are any tack strips or staples, remove every single one. The surface needs to be completely smooth. For any staples that you weren't able to pull up, you could just hammer them flat against the subfloor. As long as they're not sticking up, it's fine. Same for the subfloor nails, you'll need to hammer them flat if there are any raised up. Once all the tack strips and staples are removed, you will need to thoroughly vacuum the floor. There can't be any debris left under the vinyl planks. Once all the staples and tack strips are removed from the floor and it's vacuumed, it's time to apply the planks. What I've done is laying out a few planks right here so they're easy to access. I also have my square, utility knife, snippers, and marker ready. The pattern people typically use is a staggered pattern like this, and so we have a long one, and then the second one's roughly 2/3 the length of the first one, and the third one's about 1/3 of the length of the first one. This is a good pattern and you can repeat it and it looks very good. Once you've established how you're going to align the planks, it's time to actually put the planks down. So for this first one, the instructions suggest taking off this strip right here, cutting it right here. But since there's no load right there, you can never step this close to the wall. I just leave it on because there's no sense in shortening the plank by that much. You're just wasting product. Same for the end strip right here. I don't bother removing this. So I have one hand and glove. This is just so I can feel the subfloor for any imperfections. So before I lay down every single plank, I'm going to feel across and see if I feel anything raised. If there's anything raised, you can get the hammer and just smash it down. So for instance, this staple feels a little high, so I'm just going to hammer it down. So according to the instructions, there needs to be a 1/4 inch gap all the way around the walls. So there needs to be a 1/4 inch along this area as well as on the ends. This should account for any thermal expansion and contraction. If it thermally expands until it touches, it'll cause it to buckle because it'll expand, won't have anywhere to go, so it'll lift up in the middle. You don't want that, so there needs to be a 1/4 inch gap. They make little spacers, but they're like $10 and it's not worth it. I'm able to just eyeball it and leave it like this. Once there's enough weight on it, this won't move anyways. So I'm just going to lay the first plank right here. You can still move it around easily enough up to around the 3rd row, so it doesn't matter exactly how it is right now. I'm just going to put it roughly a 1/4 inch away from this wall as well as the end here. Then I'm going to lay the next one. So to connect these, you put the edge right here, line it up right here at the corner, and apply pressure with this hand. You're going to be putting force this way. While you're applying that force, you're going to be rotating like this. This will cause it to bend like this. And I just hold it right here so this one doesn't move. And then while you're continuing to apply force, push it down. Then I always run my hand across like this. Once you've attached it, I always look at the joint to make sure there's no gap. I'm already at my first obstruction. So what I want to do is slide the plank against the wall, move it forward the 1/4 inch. So I know this is where it needs to sit. This is where I need to cut it. I'm also going to measure away from the wall how much it needs to be. Don't forget there needs to be a 1/4 inch gap. So this is around 2 1/4. So I need to be a 1/4 inch away from it. So I'm going to slide out and I'm right at 2 inches. So I'm going to make the cut going 2 inches here and then slide over and cut this little area off. So now I'm just going to slide this in right here like this. For the connecting piece that'll go right here, you need to make the exact same depth of cut and span it until right here. Now I've reached the end of the wall, so I need to cut this last piece. So I'm just going to measure the distance between the last part of this plank. Don't measure from here, measure from here. And remember that 1/4 inch gap. So the 1/4 inch gap will end up about 25 7/8. I'm going to get the speed square ready. I'm going to put it right here against the edge. Slide it over to the 25 7/8. I'm going to push down on the speed square so it doesn't move. I'm going to get the utility knife, line up the utility knife against the speed square. So I'm going to be pushing the knife against the speed square as I'm pushing down. So you don't have to press too hard. You just quickly slide across. Like I'm barely pushing down right now, just to get right here. So all I do is grab it firmly and snap it. What I get in the habit of doing is test fitting it before putting it down, just to make sure you cut correctly. So I'm at the perfect gap right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and install it. So here's the first row done. So I'm just gonna start back at the beginning now. So now that I'm at the beginning, I need to cut the second one. So again, this one's gonna be about 2/3 the length of the first one. So I've just lined it up right here. Make sure you have this oriented correctly. The strip should be facing this way. So you're gonna be cutting over here, right here. So you're gonna be cutting this end off. So line up the speed square. You can measure this out exactly if you want. I just eyeball it because it doesn't have to be perfect. Now just continue this process while you do the entire room. So one more time, this is what I'm gonna do every single plank. I'm gonna feel to make sure this is flat. I'm gonna line it up in the corner here. Press it against the end. So I have it lined up right here. What I'm gonna do is press down. Again, I'm pressing this way with this hand as well as bending it downward. Right, with this hand, I'm gonna be pressing it down and closing that gap. I'm also doing a complex movement where I'm pushing it inward to close the joint. It takes a little getting used to get the feeling, to get the perfect joint. Once you get good enough and you get muscle memory, you'll be able to completely close the gap, and these will look very good. I would suggest practicing this before installing the flooring on a few. So at this point, I have about 1.5 boxes of the planks down. This is heavy enough so it can't slide without a lot of force. So what I've done is positioned it where I want it to be, 1/4 inch along this wall and 1/4 inch along this wall. What I've done is just stick some pencils there. So one right there, one right here. Well, it looks like I already moved it. And same thing on this side. So I position it in place using a pry bar like this. So to slide it over, you can just stick this right here and press against it. You only need to put a few pounds to slide the entire area over. So not too hard to get in position, but at this point you can push as much as you want with your bare hands to put the planks in place and it won't slide. So this is how the floor is going to be installed, so make sure it's correct at this point. When you get to areas where you need to make a long rip cut into the planks, it's fairly easy. All you need is a long straight edge. So I'm going to measure how wide I need it to be, taking into account the 1/4 inch gap. On one end I'm going to make my mark, so 4 7/8. Go to the other side, make the same mark, 4 7/8. Now I'm going to span my straight edge across, matching up where I just marked. Put a knee on one side, put a hand on the other, get your knife, and make the cut in one continuous swipe. Then you can just install the plank like normal. Also, for this specific flooring, Allure, it says that you can make the joint and if you need to, remove it within 15 minutes. I found this to be completely false. In my case, it was pretty much one and done. So as soon as I even touched the adhesive, trying to remove it would destroy the adhesive on this side. It could either rip the entire strip off or rip off the adhesive from the strip, and then it won't sit correctly. So you need to do a very thorough job and double check everything before you make a joint, because it's hard to redo anything. If you end up needing to reverse directions, you might end up something like this. So I started over there, and as I've worked right here, I need to go this way. So here I have a starting piece. This has already been cut. So I'm gonna line it up to the 1/4 inch. So I'm gonna slide it under, and I'm gonna touch just the end right here. Push it in so it makes contact. And while this is lifted up, I'm gonna slide it in like this until it just touches right here. So now it's touching at both ends. Then I'm gonna release this and just push it flat. Push this in to close the gap. And that's all there is to it for that joint. When you run into some obstacles like door frames, all you need to do is cut them. So get a scrap piece like this, put it level with it. The easiest tool to use is a multi-tool like this with a blade made for wood. Then you just sit here level, move in, and cut it all the way through. So I'm gonna cut all the way around here, move it over, and do the same thing for right here. I wanna go all the way around the door frame. This will provide the clearance needed for the plank to go underneath and be unseen. Once all the vinyl planks are installed, at this point it's time to install the shoe molding if you did not remove the trim before installing the planks. I'm going to measure from one end to the corner right here. So this is 12.5 inches. To measure the angle, I have it set around 44 degrees. This side is the side that would normally rest on the ground. I'm going to make a quick cut. Now I'm going to mark where that 12.5 inches is. Since this was at the end of a joint, I want this to be an angle instead of flat, so I'm going to flip this upside down as well and account for this being the end of the cut, not the beginning. To make the jointed piece, I'm going to measure from where I want it to end, and I'm just going to take a reference point. You could either use the outer corner or the same corner right here. I'm going to use the outer corner. So to make sure I make the cut in the right orientation, I just need to think about how it's going to line up. So this will line up exactly like this. I've already cut this from a different piece, but this is how it'll look. So to do this, I'm actually just going to flip it around like this and make a new cut to make sure it's at the right angle. Here's the piece I just cut. Whenever you have the end of a piece of trim just butted up against a 90-degree surface, you always want to miter it. This doesn't serve any functional purpose. It's just more aesthetically pleasing to have a sloping transition versus just a 90-degree. It just looks weird. So I always cut them off like this instead of 90 degrees. To secure the trim, hold it with one hand, put the nailer up next to it, and angle in downward, roughly a 45-degree angle in. Then just pull the trigger. You don't need to put a ton of nails in there. I only space it about 18 inches per nail. This is much easier because if you need to remove this, you're gonna take out every single nail, which is a pain. So I'm just gonna do one right here since my joint ends. I'm gonna push this into the corner, put one nail. And this is what the vinyl plank should look like once you're done. This is optional, but if you want the trim to look very professional, you could get a caulking gun and just fill the gap with some caulking. So to do this, I'm just going to run a small bead along the seam here. Then you could just get your finger and push it in to create a radius, and the gap is closed now. And then you can paint right over this and it'll be seamless. And that is how to install luxury vinyl plank. Thanks for watching.